as far as official information is concerned, either from the FBI or from the Sheriff's Department, nothing, nada, zilch. When I Googled this morning, as always, every morning, see if there's any news, these are the kind of the things that come up. Expert warns Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper is likely known to police. Expert says that key porch guy evidence should be the focus. Expert explains why bike flashlight needs careful examination. Retribution theory by expert. It's all about, is Savannah Guthrie or her family again a target of Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper? Experts weigh in with their opinion. It's all about experts, ex-FBI agents, ex-detectives, all chatting away about what they think, what they're speculating. No official information. And, you know, with the best will in the world, I know experts can give us special insight into things. I really think they're scraping the bottom of the barrel now. It's just like, even FBI agents, you know, how long does it take? If you've been retired for 10 years from the FBI, what sort of source, you know, the FBI, I'm presuming, has quite a high turnover of people retiring, moving to other departments, I don't know, leaving, whatever. How reliable are your sources after 10 years? You know, and so what you're doing then is you're giving the benefit of your opinion, and everybody's opinion is valuable. And ex-agents, I suppose, or ex-detectives, their opinion is probably a bit more valuable because, you know, they've got experience, but they've got experience from, some of them, it's like 20 years since they've worked in the police department. You know, it's like if you've been, I don't know, a doctor 20 years ago. It's a completely different, things change, don't they? And so anyway, I understand, you know, that they're there to give the benefit of their experience and to give their opinions on things, and it's all well and good. But the point I'm trying to make is, why is there nothing official coming out? Nothing whatsoever. And then you've got the streamers, the YouTubers actually giving out names of people that they think and photos of people who they think are involved, or, you know, they've heard that they're involved because Fred down the road, his brother's wife, told him that her cousin's uncle said. You know, it's that sort of thing. It's like, I'm not even going to report on any of those anymore, because not even mention them, because for a start, it's not fair on people having their name and photo branded about the internet. When, as far as we know, we don't know that they've got any connection to this case. I mean, it may turn out that they do, but why aren't the FBI or the Sheriff's Department, why aren't there any arrests? You know, or even since those first two detentions early on in the, you know, those first two incidents within first couple of weeks of, well, first week, I think it was, of the investigation, there's been no other questioning of people, or, you know, just no information released whatsoever, is there? And in the meantime, it's now been 3 months, hasn't it? I think. Or certainly 12 weeks since Nancy disappeared. For anyone who's been living under a rock in the true crime world and doesn't know, we're talking about Nancy Guthrie, the lady that was snatched out of her bed. This lady, early hours of the morning, a long time ago now, back right at the end of January, sleeping in her bed, and some guy, this guy, which is what we've been led to believe, is this guy, porch guy, turned up at her house. Somehow we still don't even know how they got access to the house. We still don't know for certain when these the timeline is all over the place. Anyway, this is the person that allegedly took Nancy out of her house in the middle of the night. But where is she? Where is she? Is she in Mexico, like some people think? Or is she local? Has she been dumped in the desert? Is she in someone's basement somewhere? Still alive even? We can't, it's hard to believe that, but it's a possibility. So the reason, apart from the whole mystery of this case, and this is an 84-year-old vulnerable woman, of course, one of Nancy's daughters is Savannah Guthrie, who's a famous TV anchor. She's now returned to work. She's back at work on the Today Show. The more you think about it, actually, it's really quite odd, isn't it? And then her other daughter, Annie, that's who we're going to really be talking about today. So the thing about Savannah is she lives in New York, so she wasn't close by. She was a long way away from where her mum lives in Tucson, Arizona. But she's gone back to New York. She's got a young family and she's got a job, I suppose. I suppose sooner or later you have to return to some sort of normality, even though you've got no answers. And that's what Savannah has done. Returned to her TV show. She returned last Monday. Now, in the meantime, her sister, Nancy's other daughter, this is her, Annie, and her husband, Tommaso, and they live just up the road from where Nancy lives, literally up the road. And these are the people that Nancy was with the night before she disappeared. She went round to their house for dinner and for a games night. She went in an Uber, but we haven't seen any video from the Uber. The Uber driver apparently has been cleared. Nobody's heard from him or whatever. But anyway, she went in an Uber, but she didn't come back in an Uber. We don't know who called that Uber either. We don't, is that significant? Did Nancy call that Uber herself? Was she in the habit of using Ubers? They're quite common there because I've seen a lot of the streamers that have been camped outside the house. They use them, don't they? So they're obviously not difficult to get, even though it's quite, a remote sort of neighborhood. So she went to Tommaso and Annie's house in an Uber, but she came back apparently in Tommaso's car. Tommaso brought her home. She went into, apparently, we do know that she went in through her garage door. Apparently she always used her garage door. And we know somebody opened the garage door. Was her kidnapper already waiting for her when she walked in? Did Tommaso actually see her into the house? Or did he just wait outside until the garage door closed and then drive off? And then I presume he went home, they went to bed, him and Nanny went to bed. And the next morning, the alarm was raised because Nancy was supposed to go round to a friend's house where they were supposed to watch a church service together. And she didn't turn up. So the friend apparently, don't forget, I don't think we've ever really had all this confirmed properly. The friend phoned Annie because she said, Nancy hasn't turned up to watch this church service. And that's how it all started. And then Annie phoned Savannah in New York and said, a lot of people putting quite a bit of store by that, the way because she straight away said, Mum's gone, she's missing. Whereas would she not have been more likely to say, have you heard anything from Mum? I don't know, because Savannah was a long way away, so maybe you wouldn't say that. I think if my mum went missing and one of my sisters phoned me, I don't think they'd say to me, because I'm in a different country. For those of you who don't know, my family are in the UK. I'm in Spain. My mum is no longer with us, but I'm just thinking back. If my if my mum was still alive and my family phoned me, I don't know if they'd say, "Have you heard from mum?" Maybe, but the thing is, my mum had dementia, so I would be unlikely to hear from her. Also, of course, Nancy, her phone and everything was still at the house, so maybe that's why Annie didn't even think that Savannah would have heard from Nancy. She just said straight away, "Mum's missing," or "Mom's missing," I suppose. Should say it the American way. And then all hell broke loose, didn't it? They were phoning the hospitals, see if there'd been a medical emergency, because the back doors apparently were propped open with plant pots, and they wondered if, the emergency service bin with a stretcher. Nancy was sharp as a tack mentally, so they knew she hadn't wandered away, as if she had dementia or something. Anyway, so that's basically where we are. We're not any further on than that, are we? I say 2 people detained at some point, but, no charges laid, no information given, polygraphs apparently given, but, and the families supposedly have been cleared, the family and the spouses have been cleared, but how can they be cleared? Because it's not been solved, this case. I would think you can't really 100% clear anyone until you know actually who's done it. Anyway, that's where we are. And then there is the brother, Cameron, as well. So we don't hear a lot about him or what's going on with him. But anyway, so who we're going to talk about in this video is we're going to talk about Annie. Because Annie is a poet, and quite dark poetry that she writes or wrote. I mean, whether she's still writing poetry, I don't know, because the poetry that sort of surfaced from Annie is from about 10 years ago, and we're going to have a look at it. She's got a book out, or she had a book out. It seems to have been withdrawn from sale now on Amazon. There's reviews of her poetry, and we're going to watch her actually reciting one of her poems. That's what we're going to look at in this video. First of all, I just want to say thank you to you all for watching, for caring about Nancy. We're going to stick with this case as long as there's anything to say. Just it's worrying, isn't it? The way it's gone out. As soon as the war started in Iran, that's really when the focus shifted from the mainstream media that was camped outside Nancy's house. Then it all focused on the war, etc. And now all the only, there's a couple of social media people still trying to, talk about this case, but it's getting harder and harder because, one, they're not even allowed to sort of stand outside the house now. They started off by stopping parking outside, didn't they? Oh, they made the road one way, then they stopped parking. Now, even if streamers are out there, they get the police, they get reported to the sheriffs. The neighbours are, they're even wanting Nancy's memorial taken away. So, it's like the neighbours just want to move on as if nothing ever happened, but something did happen. A woman was stolen out of her bed in the middle of the night and nobody knows what's happened to her. And I tell you what, if I was one of those neighbours, I'd want people around. Good God, it's such a isolated neighbourhood, pitch black, no lights allowed. Wouldn't you be terrified if you were one of those neighbours, knowing that someone, right from the heart of your community has just literally been plucked out of their bed and taken God knows where? It's really strange, I think. Anyway, so yeah, thank you for caring about Nancy. We'll stay with it as long as there is anything to say, and hope for a break every day. We hope for a break in the case, don't we? So yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave your DNA on the like button and the subscribe button and the notifications button, and you'll get any updates about this case or any other that we're covering. Very special thank you to my members. Very special thank you to those of you who've bought me Ko-fis, etc., to put towards my computer fund. A special thank you to those who paid Western Union, been lots of different contributed. Very, many different ways people have contributed towards my channel. Thank you. Okay, now then, hello, lovely lurkers. Nice to see you. Hope you're well this Monday morning. Hello to Replay Crew. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to come in the chat in a minute. There is somebody in there. There are some people in the chat, even at this ungodly hour of the morning, as it is in Spain. Anyway, it is. Well, it's not that ungodly. It's not quite. It's about 20 to 9. It's not that early, actually, is it? I've been up for 2 hours. But I know you're all over the world. My followers are all over the world in all different places. So it'll be different times in different places. And again, I want to say at the beginning again, because it's something that I normally say at the end, but I think it's important to say at the beginning because not everybody watches the videos through to the end. I really appreciate those of you who do, because that does make a difference as well. But don't forget to look after yourself. Take some time out for you. You are important. And a lot of us, we're always looking after everybody else, worrying if they're okay. But then sometimes we forget to look after ourselves, which reminds me, completely random, I am in the middle of painting my nails. Oh dear, I'm going to get my nail varnish, and as I'm talking to you, I will be painting my nails because I've got some classes shortly. And my nail varnish. Can't find the colour that I've got. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I don't like gel nails because I think they're bad for your nails. But the trouble is, when you put nail varnish on, it just doesn't last, does it? But anyway, that's completely changing the subject. So let's see who's in the chat. Hi, old hippie. Hi, Daniel. I hope you're well. Oh, old hippie, thanks for the compliment about the necklace. What's going on? We can't get any information, can we, about this case? Nothing's, I mean, I don't know how the family feel because, how frustrating it is for us and it's not our family member, but, you just think they must have some information, surely. I mean, they've got the photo of the guy, surely there must be something they can release. Now, something that struck me just as I was preparing for this video, because, as I say, we're going to be talking about Annie a lot in this video. Now, a lot of people are suspicious of Annie and Tommaso. Honestly, I go between, oh no, it's not fair, and then I think, oh, because, it makes logical sense for it to be something to do with Annie and Tommaso, just simply because they're the ones who lived up the road. They're the ones who saw her last. She was at their house. It was Tommaso who dropped her off at home. So, if you were to, sort of talk about probabilities, it is probable. It doesn't mean it's true because it's not always the person that you think it is that has done something. It's not always the obvious suspect, is it? And apparently, according to Nanos, Sheriff Nanos, the sheriff that's rubbish, the family have been cleared and their spouses. And now he's saying that they've been cleared from day one, I think, Whereas Ashley Banfield, the podcaster, she said a source told her that the son-in-law was a suspect. So, I think that's just typical of the misinformation around this case, and, how everything's been dealt with badly from the sheriff's department. And if any of you saw my video that I did yesterday about Rex Human and how he wasn't caught because of ineptitude and corruption in the police department, that he could have maybe have been caught 11 years earlier. I do, and the trouble was the police chief in the Gilgo Beach serial killer case, he didn't want he discharged the FBI from the case. He didn't want the FBI involved because they were investigating him. And I think that could be a thing with this case. I think Sheriff Nanas, he doesn't want the FBI to be involved because, they don't like him. He's been investigated by them before. And what is he hiding now? I'm really suspicious of Sheriff Nanas. I just completely astounds me. I'm going to put a picture up of him actually. Just completely astounds me that if you're a police chief from a place like Pima County, which is apparently is quite a big place, it's not a tiny little town, but it's not like, New York or somewhere like that. And there's the FBI offering you their resources. Surely you would take it. I just don't understand why he's so resistant to the FBI helping him unless he is, wary of them looking too closely at him. That's personally what I think. I think he is. There are things going on in that department, and he's probably trying to extricate himself from them as we speak. And I think Sheriff Nanos will go, but he'll go when he's ready to go. He won't go when, other people tell him to. But anyway, that's sort of by the by for what we're going to talk about today. So going back to Nancy. Now, Nancy has these she's got 3 children, adult children. She's got Savannah, she's got Cameron, and Annie. I think Annie is the youngest one, isn't she? Now, it's interesting because we found out that poor Nancy, she was a widow from the age of 46. Her husband was 49. He had a heart attack. So he died suddenly, and Nancy was left with the 3 children who were sort of teenagers, I suppose, to bring them up, to finish off bringing them up herself. And she's done a really good job, hasn't she? Because when you think about how what the children have done with their lives, they're grown adults now, not children. But Cameron, isn't he in the Air Force or in the services or is a pilot of some kind? Savannah, of course, is the famous news anchor on Today. And Annie has done well herself in maybe a more low-key way, but with poetry. She's a poet. So they're all very different personalities, aren't they? Savannah is the more public persona because of her job. She's been a journalist for many years. And I suppose you could say being on the Today Show in American sort of living rooms every morning, that's like a pinnacle of that sort of profession, isn't it? Or it certainly was. I mean, things are changing now. I think these breakfast shows aren't as popular as they used to be, but there was a time when breakfast shows, whatever country you're in, they're like the pinnacle of somebody's career, probably, to get on the breakfast show and be in people's living rooms every day. So she's done well. Cameron's done well, and Annie's done well in a different way. So they've all got they're all so different. They've all got their niches, which are completely different from each other. And I think it was yesterday in a video I was saying, I don't know how close they are as siblings. Are they in constant contact? You're not always in constant contact with your siblings, are you? It's not necessarily something, not always in daily contact. But of course, Annie is the one that lives nearby to Nancy. So Annie and Tommaso, they'd be the ones in direct contact with Nancy on a more regular basis. You've got Savannah who lives over the other end of America. And so I'm sure she was in contact with her mum, because now, of course, we have better communication. You can just be on WhatsApp, etc. I'm not saying she didn't have any contact, but it's not the same as just living round the corner. And Cameron, I don't know where Cameron lives. Let's have a look if I get where it does Cameron live. So Cameron's definitely the one that we don't know so much about. So it says here, Lieutenant Colonel Cameron Guthrie, brother of Samantha and a retired Vermont National Guard fighter pilot, lives in Vermont. So he has strong ties to Vermont and has previously served there, but previous reports regarding the disappearance of his mother indicated he was in Tucson, Arizona with family. So where is he now? So Colonel Cameron Guthrie was a long-time fighter pilot with the Green Mountain Boys and retired from the Vermont National Guard in 2018. Yeah, maybe we need to look at Cameron a bit more closely in another video. So I'll say today really we're talking more about Annie. So now it's surfacing, this poetry that Annie wrote. It's very dark poetry, that's thing. So I've read one of her poems out before on a video, or we've watched her reading out one of her poems, and it was about the missing. And I remember commenting, it's very ironic, isn't it? If you could see into the future when she was there reading out that poem, she won't be thinking that one day her own mother would be missing. So what do we think of the dark poet? That's what I want to look at today. I want to look at Annie's poetry. Do you think, I know a lot of people are still suspicious of Annie and Tommaso, and I just can't decide. It's something that did strike me is, did they ever, where were they? What? I'm just thinking, if my mother disappeared and went missing, I would be first thing you'd be doing is getting missing posters printed, handing them out everywhere you go. As a family member, I'm not talking about the police or whatever, just as a family member, you would be trying to get as much awareness as possible in the local community, wouldn't you, for the disappearance of your mother? Did they ever go out leafleting? Even if somebody loses their dog or their cat, they go out and put missing posters up normally, don't they, and offer a small reward. Or on Facebook, you do it on Facebook or social media. I suppose that's the way a lot of people do things these days. But I would definitely be down the shopping mall or down wherever I thought there were people. If you knew that area well enough, you would know where the most people hang out. And even though you think, oh God, everybody's probably heard of Nancy going missing, not necessarily, because a lot of people don't watch the news or read social media and things. So have they actually handed out flyers and things? It just seems odd to me, because that to me would be the first thing I would be doing if it was my mother that had gone missing. As much as the YouTubers, etc., must be irritating for them, to have camped outside the house, at least they are raising awareness. They're raising awareness of that Nancy has gone missing. They don't to, I don't know. I think I would be there talking to them as well. They'd be like, Please, you'd be doing direct appeals, wouldn't you? I know they've done a couple of appeals. Well, Savannah's done the most appeals. So you had one appeal from all three of them, wasn't there? And then there was an appeal by Cameron on his own. Then there was, I've forgotten the order of the appeals now. And then there's been a few by Savannah on her own. And then there was another one of all three of them together. Annie hasn't done any appeals on her own. Well, not public appeals anyway. Whether she's gone around the neighbourhood and spoke to people individually, I just not as far as we know, but she may have done. So yeah, it's all a bit odd, isn't it? Where is Nancy Guthrie? I mean, seriously, where is she? Where is Nancy Guthrie? Who took her? Why did they take her? And I mean, it's so inconceivable to me. The Monsignor, with what they do have, like the photo of the guy on the doorstep and stuff like that, and the blood trail, and nothing makes sense. But how can you think after 3 months that they don't know anything? But anyway, okay, let's have a look at Annie reading this poem out. So this, the book that Annie wrote is called The Good Dark. The Good Dark. So this is very dark poetry. There are segments called like Body and The Missing, and so it's dark poetry, which means nothing. I mean, poetry can be dark, can't it? And she says apparently the poems in The Good Dark are a trail of evidence of where I've been exploring, where I have participated, where I have been listening, what I have been asking. More than task and design, I'm receiving a path. That's what Annie said about her book. So let's have a look. Let me just make sure it's sharing. Yeah, it's coming on now.
From the final section, Body. Behind the pupil, a floret of lines burst toward release. A question is raised. The body gives its cross-hatched replies. Whatever in the bloom, what never, on what dream's shelf is ever wilting. On top the night's helm, my howl ahems, the tyrant ahas. Unmoored from port of stem, thinkers keep their words. Put too many coins in GD. It doesn't play. And then, if still or even unplucked from the hook and hung by, get me down, I'm upside down, trying the will, riding it. Bones tell too much of life to skin. Behind all faces, all bone. I saw in one moment an eye open enough to soften the gaze. In there should dare weigh nothing. Walking days under rib cage of oaks by the river. Sometimes it opens. You are in the body of oak bones. Other times whitens in grimace, retrieves a perceiving. Or it could be a body. It might be your body. In that case, how silly all this time. Belief in nothing, collecting, the lateness of hours, sun and sea setting, light as face, reflecting, finding a sameness in things. The body took the blame for the deeds of the mind. It was this kind of human.
Well, there you go. What do you think of that? So very dark, isn't it? The poetry of Annie. So, not that that means anything in itself, but I was thinking about Annie, and I was thinking, with the Rayner case, Nick Reiner, they had three children, didn't they? Three adult children. Is it three? Maybe more. No, I think it was three. And Nick was like the black sheep of the family, and it just made me think about was Annie regarded as, as the sort of strange one in the family? I mean, she's a grown woman now, though that poetry sort of quite often in teenagers, I think people write poetry, don't they? Quite often it is dark poetry, for teenagers and that, but she's obviously got a macabre way of thinking. Now, that doesn't make her a killer. I'm not saying that means that she's, done something to Nancy. I'm just thinking about how it is. And then in the meantime, you've got Savannah, who's like, this famous sort of TV personality, and Cameron is like the pilot and the hero type person. And has Annie, been on like a catch up, like as she felt? How can I put this? Quite often with sibling rivalry. Is there any sibling rivalry